Alright, I got my framework done here.
We'll get the roughest and the toughest initiation we can find. We'll start a car club.
I didn't show you guys much of this because it was literally just, you gotta figure out how to link it together, and this is what I came up with, you know. And so, that's what I came up with. Dropped down in the front here for the bumper brackets. So our bumper brackets sit right there. Did some supports up to the original unibody subframe mounts. That's our frame. Our 4-link will connect right somewhere in here. The parallel 4-bar will go back. A lot to finish up, you know, as far as some welding and stuff. I need to cut a hole in the floor here to get that top weld there. But what I'm more worried about is getting the motor and trans mocked up. I can take care of a lot of this other stuff later. I do need to figure out how to tie this rail kind of in here, or finish it off into the structure again. Turned out pretty cool, I think. Unibody, but you know, it's got some stout framework under it. Now we got our front suspension connected to our rear here, so that's what we are really going for here, and having something to really weld a 4-link to and whatnot. So there she is. One of the little rooms here in the shop that always has something interesting. But what we're after here is my new motor mounts and an old, it's a 283 out of a 56 Chevy. I put new seals in and stuff. It's not fully rebuilt, but new oil pump, timing chain. Did a compression check and we'll be alright. And then had a turbo 350 rebuilt for it. Still need to pick up my torque converter. And I still need to get an intake for this. I was going to do tri-power, but I want it to be reliable, and I'm not going to mess with it all. So have these cooled, I think they were Cal custom valve covers, which are cool. They don't have the vents or nothing, so I'll have the regular stem vent here. Yeah, kind of a neat motor. I hope I'm not going to use these manifolds, but they are the old vet style manifolds. They might be, or the early manifolds anyways. I don't know if I'm going to use them or not, but we'll see. It's something that we can see if it'll work with the frame. Anyways, something that I've had prepped for 3 different vehicles. I had it in a Cadillac, and then I put it in Mercury, 51 Merc, and now we'll try it in our Nash. Alright, ready to go. Let's get her in there, man. Alright, so motor and trans are mocked up in here. I got my motor mounts ready to be welded in. These are a nice little motor mount that I get on eBay. You just do small block Chevy weld in motor mounts and it comes up with these. And just kind of a sweet, simple little setup. Has a bushing in there. Probably a lot tighter than a stock mount. Might get more vibration through the car from the motor with it, but I'm not too concerned with my 100 horsepower 283. I got my angle finder on there. I don't have my intake on, which is usually how you use the angle finder. You usually just put it on the carburetor plane, set it up at 0. I'm leaning the angle finder is about 3 degrees on the valve cover, 4 degrees, so that's what I'm doing there. And it's just barely fitting in. There's always that sweet little spot, but it's barely off the oil pan, and I barely have room to get the drive line through to where I want it without tunneling it. And so this is our spot, you know. It's funny how often when you're putting in a motor you find out that there's this spot that you have to get within like a 1/4 inch of where you're at, or it's just not going to work. A lot of times you like to be a little further back on your compared to your ball joints. So my ball joints are going to be right about here. It would be nice to have the motor a little further back for handling, But once again, on this Nash, I'm not too concerned about it. And this is a position where I can keep my wiper motor and keep my heater, and everything will fit. So kind of calling it a happy medium, and loads of room for my radiator, which is always nice because a lot of times that ends up being an issue. So that's where she goes. I don't know if I showed you, the motor mounts are in, trans mount are in, motor setup. I'm looking for parts around the shop, which is going pretty well. I just love that I have stuff here. We got a trans cooler. Thought about doing some different tail lights. I got these orange ones because I was going to use it on an orange car, but I could just switch them to red ones. I thought maybe if I extended this out, I wasn't going to do any body modifications, but the tail lights are expensive, so you're kind of getting paid to customize it anyways. But I do love shopping at my own store, Kyle's Speed Shop. And I might be able to use this guy, underfloor brake. I do need an alternator. That looks like that'll work. Let's bring that over. Well, out of all my pulleys I got these two to work, but I really don't want a double V because all I have is the alternator, so ended up having to bite the bullet and buy a pair of pulleys, and then I'll still got to figure out how to get that guy on. So looks like we have a bunch of zits on the firewall, but filling in little holes. They had a lot of different holes for holding insulation and stuff. Big deal was putting in the brake booster and master cylinder and getting it to fit in that little area that looked like that. But I opened it up a little bit, made a little speed hump, and fit in there quite nicely. Actually, I'm pretty happy with that. I'd like to clean it up to where these kind of curves and stuff actually look really nice in here, you know. So working on that. The next little thing, jumping around here a little bit, I took some tubing, exhaust tubing, a mandrel U-bin, and I want to make a different kind of end to the quarter here, but kind of continue my original intended shape, just kind of like feather it out to where it looks right. Do a different tail light because these ones are just too hard to find in a good shape, and if you do find them, they're just so expensive. So just a good little spot to do some custom because it kind of pays for itself ish. Yeah, I'm gonna mess around with this a little bit. Next thing I'm gonna do here is take the plasma and cut out the inside part of the pipe, and then kind of try to flare it out to where it'll match up to these edges a little bit, and then sheet it in or something. Anyways, that's kind of what I'm fooling with. So got our pulleys situated. All it took was money and ordering parts, and of course a little custom. I made a little spacer for my water pump bracket. I made a little Mick bracket to go to their Mick bracket. This is a manifold for these early heads. If you notice on these heads, there's no accessory bolt mounts. If you're running these heads and you want AC and power steering and alternator, you're gonna have it's really hard to do. If you want AC and all that stuff, it's best to not use heads like this. If you're running most accessories, like if you're running alternator, power steering, AC, and of course your water pump as usual, I really suggest a serpentine. It just makes life a lot easier. I know it sucks on some of this old school stuff to not have the V-belts, but it's just a pain in the, you know, water And since we're only using an alternator on this, I love these heads because they are a simple plain head. They don't have all that stuff on them like the normal heads do. And I absolutely love having a single V pulley, not a multiple accessory, and just the alternator. I think it's an awesome old school look, and it's really cool to me. And that might sound funny, but I just love it. It's just simplicity. Will all look really good together because we got a single V-belt pulley, we got valve covers with no ports or anything on them. We just have our oil fill on the front. There will be there's like kind of a PCV thing in the inside of the intake that just dumps the crankcase fumes out. It would just be a tube that runs down the back of the motor and out. But I like it. It's just a really simple look. It's very nostalgic. This is a 1957 motor, I believe. You know, it's just cool in its simplicity, and of course some chrome.